Alright guys, so we all know that the way Daniel Ricciardo has performed in the 2021 and 2022 Formula 1 seasons has been quite frankly a shadow of what we have gotten used to seeing Ricciardo performing like over the years. It just hasn't been the same, apart from his win at Monza last season of course. But that win is definitely not at all accurately representative of his stint at McLaren. Now, I want to start off by saying that I think Ricciardo is a quality driver, and I really think he deserves another chance on the grid next season with another team. But whether that's going to happen is really up to him, because I have no doubts that a team like Williams or Haas would be jumping at the opportunity to have Ricciardo on board with them for seasons to come, but they definitely don't have the spending power to pay Ricciardo the salaries he's become accustomed to over the last few years. In recent interviews about his future in F1, Daniel has said something along the lines of not wanting to just jump at any free Formula 1 seat for the next season, and that he wants to be in a competitive car. Of course, that's not a surprise, he's a racing driver after all, but I'm afraid he'll have to get in line because that's exactly what all the other drivers want just as much as he does. And especially after having the worst seasons he's had in his F1 career, isn't that just a bit too much to ask for? It's almost like if Sebastian Vettel, for example, were to go to Aston Martin in 2021 after his wretched 2020 season and demand a best of the rest or podium-worthy car. Let's be honest, that just wasn't going to happen. You have to work your way back up from hitting a low, and Seb understood that. He was merely trying to keep his F1 career afloat for the time being so that he could have the chance to improve again and work his way back to the top. Sebastian Vettel, a four-time world champion who holds some of the most impressive records in Formula 1, wasn't being offered anything better than a midfield car. So what exactly is Ricciardo expecting to happen? I mean, even though I think Ricciardo still has a lot to offer in Formula 1, there really is no doubt that when or if he does move to a new team, there will have to be some serious rebuilding on his side to get back to the fierce and highly competitive Daniel Ricciardo we used to know. But as things stand, no team in their right mind would even consider signing Daniel on a $20 million+ contract. I think even 10 would be pushing it. The truth is, I think Daniel has to start treating the situation as it really is. He's no longer one of the most sought out young drivers on the grid. He's at a point where he's quite literally trying to survive and stay afloat in one of the most competitive sports in the world. So I believe his best bet would be to take any seat he possibly can for next season, rather than picking and choosing from a selection that, quite frankly, isn't available to him at the moment. But all that aside, Ricciardo got into this situation all by himself, by making one, if not two, seriously bad moves. I say that because one is debatable, and that was Daniel's move away from Red Bull back in 2019. On one hand, yes, Ricciardo was definitely being moved aside for the younger Max Verstappen, all while Verstappen was quickly getting faster and faster, making it harder for Ricciardo to compete at the front for wins. And we all know F1 is very much a team sport, so without a good team backing you week in and week out, chances of succeeding are, to put it generously, a lot slimmer. But on the other hand, look how far Red Bull has come since then. In 2021, obviously, Verstappen won the Drivers' Championship with them, and now in 2022, Verstappen is a few points away from locking in his second title, with 5 races left in the season. What if Ricciardo had stayed? He would have had a piece of all the action, and he could have shown what he was truly capable of in a championship contending car. But of course, that is all just a big what if, and honestly, I don't blame him too much for leaving, because in a sport, when your own team begins to walk away from you, that may be a good sign to jump ship. And of course, that's exactly what Daniel did back in 2019 when he made the shock move to Renault, which is now Alpine for any new fans. And his stint there was quite simply brilliant. Of course, in his first season with the team, there was this whole getting used to the car thing going on, as there usually is with any driver who switches teams, but even then he managed to finish P9 in the Drivers' Championship, 5 places and 15 points ahead of his teammate Nico Hülkenberg. As far as first years go, that wasn't half bad by any standard, but it was his second season at Renault that really stood out. In his second season at the team, he absolutely obliterated his new teammate Esteban Ocon. He scored 119 points and ended up in P5 in the constructors' standings at the end of the season, whereas Ocon only managed a measly 62 points and a P12 in the standings. On top of that, Ricciardo managed 2 podiums in that Renault. Clearly something between Daniel and the car was clicking, and he could pull some pretty impressive results out of the bag on a fairly consistent basis. Things were looking good on Renault's end up until Daniel's move to McLaren. Now, imagine this. Ricciardo remained at Renault, now Alpine, had a decent 2021 season with maybe a podium or 2, again which would have been really great to see. And then the 2022 season comes around with new regulations and Ricciardo is handed the 4th fastest car on the grid. We all know that he got along with the kind of philosophy Alpine built their cars around, so I have zero doubts that Ricciardo's last 2 seasons would have looked immensely better than what they actually do look like had he remained at Alpine. So ultimately, I think Ricciardo's biggest mistake was leaving a growing team in which he was doing very well in and had the potential to do well with in the future, all just to hop over to a team that may have had a marginally better car in 2021 but didn't suit Ricciardo's driving style whatsoever, so he couldn't extract anywhere near the full performance out of that car. And now in 2022, that McLaren is just simply not a good car. And Daniel still can't maximize his performances in it in his 2nd season. All while the team he left have a significantly better car that actually suits his driving style. But it doesn't end there, oh no. As if the situation already isn't bad enough, Daniel's teammate Lando Norris is and has been performing at the highest level of his career. Absolutely whooping Ricciardo this season and last season. And the worst part of it all is, he was expected to be the #1 driver. McLaren weren't signing a rookie. They were looking for someone to replace Carlos Sainz at the team. So why not go for one of the biggest and most talented names in the sport? Daniel Ricciardo. Well, now we know why, and quite frankly, it's sad to see such a talented driver's career stained so badly by a bad stint with a team, and now his future in the sport is far from guaranteed. Just 2 years ago, he was one of the most sought after drivers on the grid, and now he's got to pick up and salvage what's left of his career in future. And this all stemmed from one terrible decision to leave Renault. And I can confidently say, and I'm sure a lot of you guys agree, that this was the worst mistake Ricciardo has made throughout his F1 career so far. And it could quite possibly be a career-ending one too, although I really hope that it doesn't end up being so. But that was it for me, guys. If you do have anything you want to add or you simply just want to say something, please do so in the comments below. It really helps out with the algorithm if you do so. And if you did end up enjoying this video at any point at all, please consider liking the video and more importantly, subscribing to help with the growth of this channel. But really guys, thank you all so much for watching, and on that note, I hope you all have a blessed night, and I'll catch you all next time.